Well, we've reminisced through the best games of the 80s and 90s. It's finally time for the aughts, or naughties, or double O's, or whatever we're supposed to call the 2000s. I have mixed feelings about this decade because not only did many of several of the greatest games of all time get created here, but the PC saw decreasing importance in the eyes of much of the games industry. This was the decade of the console surpassing the PC in the eyes of publishers at least, to the point where most of the games seen on Windows seem to be shoddy console ports instead of the other way around. On the other hand, there are some true masterpiece gaming experiences to be had, and often the PC is the best way to experience them. I also know that opinions are going to be very divided amongst the viewership of this video in particular, so please keep it civil in the comments because there's nothing wrong with anyone's opinions, but trolling and douchebaggery will not be tolerated. That said, let's get right into my personal favorite games appearing on the PC from the first decade of the new millennium, starting with number 17, American McGee's Alice. Being released in 2000, this one just barely makes the list requirements, but it's definitely a worthy title. American McGee's Alice is a cult classic action-adventure platform game that is based on the Quake 3 engine. It takes the classic Lewis Carroll stories of Alice in Wonderland and twists them into something darker than they already were. The environments, weird situations, and bizarre weapons are mainly why I play this game because, let's be honest, the combat can be pretty clunky. It works and you kinda get used to it, but it's really starting to show its age. However, I just really like the atmosphere of this game and the weird sense of loneliness and increasing madness that just gets heavier as the game goes on. It's flawed but awesome, and it's pretty much the definition of a cult classic game. Number 16, Bejeweled 2. Not since Solitaire have I wasted so much freaking time when I honestly should be doing something more important. In some ways I enjoy games like Plants vs. Zombies or Peggle a little bit more, but Bejeweled 2 is an endless puzzle game that is entirely different each time you play. Sometimes you don't make it past the first stage, and sometimes you just keep going for what seems like forever. And to be honest, I can't stand to play it for more than 15 or so minutes at a time, but that's what a casual game is all about. It's perfect for jumping right into and wasting some time without having to think about anything at all. If I'm depressed or a little stressed out, I play Bejeweled 2, and nothing else in the world matters for just a few minutes. Number 15, Postal 2. In case you don't know, Postal 2 is one of those games that is just meant to shock and awe more than anything else, I think. But there's something about it that keeps me coming back to it time and time again, and that something is the feeling of catharsis. You play a guy known only as Postal Dude, going about your daily errands in an open-world city for 1 week, and it's up to you to decide how to handle things. For instance, do you want to wait in line to buy that carton of milk, or just set everyone on fire and shoplift it? Although you can play the game without harming anyone or doing anything really wrong, it's much more fun to just go postal. It gets even better if you install the mod titled A Week in Paradise that takes advantage of the Apocalypse Weekend expansion. Just don't play the expansion itself, it's really lame. Number 14, SimCity 4 Deluxe. What can I say? I love SimCity. Some may argue that it got a bit too complex for its own good by this point, but I still really enjoy SimCity 4, especially with the Rush Hour expansion installed. The only thing I'm not so keen on is the requirement of neighboring cities being around to make deals with in order to make a truly prosperous city. Still, it's an incredibly addicting sim game and continues with all the same aspects that makes the series great. And there's a great selection of mods available for the game to tweak almost every detail of the gameplay to really suit your style. Every decade there's been a SimCity game I've enjoyed highly, so I really hope the 2010s provide the same. So EA, please stop dicking around with games like SimCity Societies and spin-offs of The Sims and give us a proper SimCity 5, please. Number 13, Crysis. Yes, it's not just a benchmarking utility. Crysis to me is incredibly rad. If you have the graphics display and sound set up to really take advantage of what Crysis offers, you are in for one wild time if you like this kind of thing. The whole idea behind Crysis comes across well enough in the Far Cry games. Have a huge world that is mostly open where you can choose your path to your target and use whatever tactics you want to get the job done. But Crysis just took it much further, whether it's blowing up a bridge, sneaking through dense jungles, sniping guards, or just shooting crabs on the beach. Crysis has your options covered. And because it's so open to random events depending on how you go about your business, each time you play it's quite different from the last time. And due to the modding tools that Crytek has released for the game, there's a billion friggin' mods for it. So if you get bored, just make your own stuff or download more. Crysis really is more than a graphical powerhouse. It's an enjoyable shooter with lots of options to play how you want. I guess that doesn't make it extremely special, but to me, it's just awesome. Number 12, Unreal Tournament 2004. UT 2004 took nearly everything from the first Unreal Tournament and either tweaked it to keep it fresh or simply made it better. The graphics were great for the time, there's a wider selection of weapons, and many more maps and game modes. Even offline playing by yourself, the game is very much enjoyable, with a very competent AI system that can certainly teach you a few new tricks if you stay alive long enough. And the mods for the game, as always, are incredible. If you can think it up, there's a mod to make it happen. Now, I did enjoy Unreal Tournament 3, which came later, but it had such a rocky start, and I couldn't get over how it just felt like Gears of War and Unreal had an ugly meathead man-baby together. UT 2004 is simple and fast, gory fun in an easy-to-approach package with amazing multiplayer. There's really not much to hate.
Number 11.5, Serious Sam. This is the female lazy gamer viewer here, climbing in yo windows, snatching yo top 17 lists up. It would be unjust if I were to allow Serious Sam to be left out of this list, especially the Gold Edition, which includes both of his seriously original encounters. Developed by Crow Team, a small independent studio based in Croatia, Serious Sam takes cues from games like Doom and Duke Nukem 3D and turns the insanity up to 11.5. It's the simplest first-person shooter you can think of. Just you, a ton of guns, a ton of enemies, and a variety of massive environments. The feeling of simultaneously being overwhelmed and totally in control is a trademark of Serious Sam, and I love it. And if the single player starts to get stale, there's always the frantic multiplayer modes and easy-to-use editing tools to keep things serious. In other words, this game never gets old. Not completely unlike Donkey Kong Country. Oh, so good. Now back to your regularly scheduled lazy top 17.
Number 11, Borderlands. I totally missed out on this game when it first came out, but I bought it when the Game of the Year edition was released, and good grief am I glad I did. At first I thought, oh great, a Fallout 3 ripoff, but then I could not have been more wrong once I started playing. Gearbox Software's Borderlands is a first-person shooter with lots of elements thrown in that are usually seen in loot-dropping role-playing games. It really is impressive how well they pulled this off, and I'm just amazed this doesn't get more recognition than it does. It's a very solid first-person shooter experience in a massive open world, but it's got that old familiar dungeon-crawling, loot-collecting, enemy-massacring appeal that games like Diablo have. And the art direction and ecosystem they've created here is just appealing to me, with some not-so-subtle hints of that post-apocalyptic feel of Mad Max thrown in for good measure. I love Borderlands, and I can't wait for the sequel. Number 10, Grand Theft Auto 4. Now, before you all send me hate mail exclaiming San Andreas and Vice City are better games, allow me to explain. If we were talking about console games, I'd be inclined to agree. But we're talking about the PC here, and what you can do on the PC port is amazing. I mean, I actually like the story and characters and locations in the vanilla game, but the PC version provides so much more to do, it's really like a whole nother game. First, the PC version has the built-in video editor, allowing you to create stunning machinima with the Rage engine. Then you've got the ridiculous modding community, allowing you to tweak, break, and replace practically everything in the game. Rockstar barely scratched the surface of what you could do with this game, but thankfully the mods removed all restraints. I do wish this port were better optimized for different computers, as it runs unusually slow on even slightly older PCs, but it still just makes for a killer sandbox of chaos. Number 9, Saints Row 2. GTA 4 might be an awesome sandbox when modded, but Saints Row 2 is awesome right out of the box. Labeling itself as sort of an over-the-top spoof of games like San Andreas, Volition's Saints Row 2 has you leading a gang on the quest to take back the city of Stillwater from the giant Ultor Corporation. It's almost complete anarchy, and holy nuts is it fun. It's got tons of mission variety, intense customization, a clear sense of progression, completely ridiculous side missions, and absolutely no respect for pretty much anything. Sometimes it does seem like it's trying a bit too hard to be edgy, but in the context of the whole thing, I really don't have a problem with it. And it only gets better in the multiplayer modes, consisting of traditional competitions and gang war modes, and the ability to play the entire campaign co-op. The PC version may be a pretty obvious console port, which is kinda nyeh, but it's such a ludicrously fun time I'm willing to forgive and forget. Number 8, Diablo 2. What is there to say about Diablo 2 that hasn't already been said? How about Diablo 2 is so good, it makes month-old celery taste like the most scrumptious pizza you've ever had? That would be a lie, but it has now been said about Diablo 2, true or not. The game is an action RPG dungeon crawler, and it is stupidly good. I could heap praises on this game all day long, but you know what? I will. The story is great, the graphics are great, the music is amazing, the controls are spot on, the progression is wonderful, and the multiplayer is beyond top-notch. And the loot, oh my goodness, the loot, I can never get enough. There is a very good reason why people still play this game quite frequently to this day, and that reason is because it's Diablo 2 and it is better than you can possibly imagine. Number 7, The Sims 2. This was a tough one for me because I enjoy the other games in the Sims series immensely. The first is just classic, and I really like The Sims 3 for its various improvements. But I simply spent way more time with The Sims 2 and its 4 billion expansion packs than the other games. The 3D game engine and the subtle changes to the way the simulation works made it better than the first game, and so far I just have enjoyed the expansion packs of The Sims 2 over those of The Sims 3. But the biggest reason I prefer this to the first and third game is, again, the modding community. If you can't tell by now, if it's got a great modding community, I probably am going to love the game. By the end of its life cycle, there really wasn't much you couldn't do in The Sims 2, whether it was completely redoing the way every relationship works, to medieval total conversions, to additions of guns and melee weapons. The Sims isn't just for teenage girls and stay-at-home moms, although that does make up a large percentage of the community. It's for anyone who feels that urge to manipulate virtual lives and cause havoc to very personalized individuals without repercussions. Number 6, Max Payne. When I first got this game, my face melted, my brain hemorrhaged, and I still have not recovered. Max Payne is a dark, narrative-driven, gritty, and atmospheric third-person action experience. It has a well-written film noir-like story, memorable characters, great voice acting, an amazing soundtrack, and of course the famous use of bullet time, which really got that trend started in games. Before Max Payne, I had never thought of a game as a possibility for this degree of emotion coming through the screen, but this changed all of that for me. I love Max as a down-and-out lead character, and I love how the story starts at the end and goes back to explain itself. It just stood out from the rest of gaming and still does today. The sequel was great too, but I didn't like as much about it, and it seemed like it was trying a bit too hard to be gritty, and I really didn't like Mona that much. But the original is just a sick, dark, and powerful game. I got my chest hair from Max Payne. Number 5, The Elder Scrolls III: Morrowind. I love me some action role-playing, and I love the overhead isometric perspective games like Baldur's Gate and Diablo use, but there's something about the first-person view that just lubes my gears something swell. Is that even a phrase? Well, whatever it is now. Morrowind remains my preferred first-person high fantasy RPG, even though it's been improved on in many ways by the likes of Oblivion. It just has to do with the setting of the game, the personality of the characters, the narrative you follow, the side missions, the weapons, and on and on. And wow, Jeremy Soul's soundtrack to this game is just phenomenal. I sometimes find myself listening to it all day. I just prefer Morrowind, even though it's got admittedly clunky combat, poorly optimized graphics engine, and a confusing quest journal, blah blah blah. I can ignore those. It's pretty much the definition of a slightly flawed masterpiece, and I'm totally okay with that. Number 4, Deus Ex. You know that meme about how every time you mention Deus Ex, someone reinstalls it? Yeah, it's totally true, as I'm guilty of doing that on multiple occasions. And at least one of you out there is going to do the same after seeing this. This is a hybrid cyberpunk FPS/adventure/role-playing/mystery/stealth game, and it is 110% amazing. It's got impressively open-ended gameplay, an over-the-top conspiracy-laden plotline, fantastic sneak and stealth elements, gunplay that actually works well enough when you need it to, great music, great graphics for the time, solid controls. Yeah, is there anything wrong with this game? Well, the majority of the experience is so solid it's pretty easy to forgive small things like the often stupid AI and cheesy voice acting. What a shame. But these are very minor, and do not detract from the overall Deus Ex experience enough for me to give a crap. All that hype about the game possibly being the best of all time? Yeah, on some days I feel that way, and I can see how many others do the same, because it really is that impressive. Number 3, Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition. I have never spent as much time with any one game as I have with Fallout 3. At this point I have put around 170 hours into it, and for as many games as I normally play at a time, that is huge. Now yes, the original Fallout games are classic in their own right, and some people seem to hate this game, but Fallout 3 I think of as a reboot of the series, and I think it's great. I love the bleak post-apocalyptic world, foreboding atmosphere, and memorable stories with varying paths. And Fallout 3 wraps all of this up into a first-person RPG experience, and it's somehow still a polar opposite of Borderlands, which on the surface seems very similar. And as usual for Bethesda games, the modding community is vast and vibrant, so I'm still not bored of it. I easily see myself spending another 40 hours exploring the likes of Megaton, Rivet City, The Pit, and Paradise Falls. This is just an incredibly awesome game to me, and maybe that's because I'm more of a Bethesda game style fan than I am a Fallout fan, but whatever the case, I love it. Number 2, Portal. This one came very close to being my most awesome game of the decade. Portal is amazing because of everything about it. The atmosphere, the physics puzzles, the fact that it reinvents what an FPS game can be, and of course the dark, twisted story involving the ambiguously evil computer GLaDOS. You feel alone, you feel manipulated, you feel confused, and then you feel free and alive. And like what you're doing is not just some pre-programmed routine, it has purpose. And then after a few hours, it's over. Portal does not outlive its welcome, and that's one of the biggest reasons why it's brilliant. The story it tells is nothing short of pure sci-fi brilliance and completely blew away every game that had come before it. Well, every game except for number 1, Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing. Okay, wait, that's the wrong top 17 list. Hold on here. Here we go. Number 1, Half-Life 2. Yeah, 2 Valve games in my top 2, I know, but Half-Life 2 really is that good. The narrative story and characters are just incredibly well written, and you really get invested in them even though the protagonist never talks. The level design and set pieces are amazing, the atmosphere you experience is intense, and the Eastern European setting is perfect for City 17. On top of that, the gameplay is fantastic in nearly every respect, with only the vehicle sections being slightly clunky at times. And you want to talk to me about friggin' games that just sort of speak to you in some way that you really can't figure out. I call it that intangible game feeling. This is one of those games, and it does it like nothing else out there. It's just sometimes when you're out on the side of a cliff, driving around, there's nothing there, just fog, and death to your right, and death behind you, and death in front of you, and death coming from above, maybe from underground. You never feel like you're safe in this game. You feel like everybody's going to lose, humanity's screwed, but yet you're still trying. And the way it wraps all this together is perfect. And of course, the Source engine is simply amazing for modding, and as a result, Half-Life 2 has one of the biggest modding communities I've ever seen. And all this is kind of funny because I really didn't enjoy the first game that much, but whatever the case, this is my favorite game of the 2000s, and one of my favorite first-person shooters, or games at all. And that is all for my top 17 games from the first 30 years of the PC. I know a lot of you won't agree with my choices, but you can get over it. These lists are an extremely hard thing to do, as I could have easily made a top 100 and not been satisfied, so I simply had to leave a ton of great games out. Anyways, if you missed any of the previous videos in this series, you can check them out by clicking on these neat little video boxes here. Aren't they cool? Thanks for watching, more lazy game reviews coming soon.
Officer in danger, Acer Plaza, repeat, Acer Plaza, all units.
They were all dead.